The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you always, the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot accept because it neither sees nor knows him. But you know him, because he remains with you and will be in you. I will not leave you orphans, I will come to you. In a little while the world will no longer see me, but you will see me, because I live and you will live. On that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I in you. Whoever has my commandments and observes them is the one who loves me. And whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and reveal myself to him." The Gospel of the Lord. Well, if you're coming back to Mass, quote unquote, for the second time today, virtually, thank you for doing so. It's been an absolutely wild morning. We had serious technical difficulties. When we first came into the church, it was about 1,000 degrees because they're working on our HVAC system, and the air conditioning was not working here in the church. You can probably still see I'm sweating here. It's warm in here. But then, more importantly, of course, our audio system wasn't working, and we think perhaps something happened in the thunderstorm last night, knocked out the system. We'll see, but we're hoping to be able to get that back up and running. So if you've made it back, congratulations, thanks be to God. We have beautiful readings today. And the place where I'd like to start is by asking you to just make a little spiritual exercise here. I'd like you to think back to the last time, the most recent time perhaps, that you gave a gift to someone whom you love very much. Think back to that. Think about all the preparation that goes into it. You consider a few different things, and then, you lock on this one. That's what we're going to give this person whom I love so much. And then all the excitement that builds to make that gift, and for the person to learn about the gift, and to see it, and to unwrap it, and to have it. All the enormous joy that comes on the part of the giver and on the part of the receiver. That's the place where we find ourselves now in the Easter season. The Easter season, which is coming to a close, does not kind of close in a whimper. It's not as if the decisive event lies 5 weeks behind us and it's receding ever more into the past and we're proceeding ever further away from it. What we learn today is that there's something that's emerging in front of us, a new open horizon, and that horizon is a gift that the Father and Son want to give to us. And just like us, in preparing the gift, undoubtedly it must bring them great joy in the thought of us receiving it and living with it and having it. What is the gift? The gift which we will receive once again, as we do every year, thanks be to the good Lord, on Pentecost, is the gift of the Lord's very own Spirit, his very own life breath, which he breathes into us. But here in John's Gospel, the Spirit is very, very frequently referred to in the terms that we heard today. The Spirit of truth. We worship God in spirit and truth, so we hear in the 4th chapter of John's Gospel. Here we are now in the 14th, and we'll continue 15th, 16th, 17th chapter of John's Gospel, the Last Supper discourses, and repeatedly there, the Spirit is spoken of as the Spirit of truth. Why? What is this gift that we're receiving? The Spirit of truth. A few weeks ago, during this period of quarantine, I finally had the chance to watch a film that I've been looking forward to seeing, and it's been on my watch list for a couple years now. It was made in 2017. And yes, there is a bird in here that just flew behind my head. Things can't get stranger on this morning. Let's hope maybe it'll come and alight on my shoulder. We'll see. Anyway, this movie came out in 2017. I haven't had a chance to see it until just recently. It's called The Death of Stalin. The Death of Stalin. Tells the story of those 3 days of the interregnum in 1953, in between the long-reigning and thoroughly uncontrolled dictator of the old Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, and the question of who would be his successor. All of the up and down of people trying to succeed him. If it sounds like a heavy and grim and ponderous watch, I assure you it is not. It is one of the most rip-roariously funny, madcap, hysterical movies I've seen in a long time. Apart from some salty language, I recommend it to you adults, maybe not to the children. It is hysterical, but it is deadly serious about one thing. It's deadly serious about the question of the truth. And what happens when a society becomes totally unmoored from the truth. The movie opens in Stalin's country house outside of Moscow. He has collapsed on the floor of his study. They've discovered him, and immediately the Central Committee of the Communist Party, the Politburo, begins assembling. And we learn very quickly that they're assembling not because of their great concern for the dear leader. They're already angling to see who will fill the power vacuum. And so everyone is already calculating and making their chess moves and whatnot, burning documents and making strategic phone calls and all this. But they realize that they've got to handle this situation very carefully. They're going to call in the children of Stalin, who will undoubtedly have many questions about whether foul play was at issue and all that. And so they've determined, well, we've got to call a doctor. And they confer about this briefly, and then one of them says, there's only one problem. We sent all the good doctors to the Gulag. There are no real good doctors left. And so what are we going to do? And so they hatch this plan that they're going to go and see if they can find anyone. Is there at least a med student? Is there anyone left studying medicine? Let's see who we can find. They go and they scrounge together a few very young med students who know nothing. And then that's not enough. You need a whole team of doctors. And so they start bringing in random people. And the whole idea is if we could just put a white coat on you and bring you in, you'll look the part. It'll be enough to satisfy the children of Stalin that we've done what we could for him. All we need is to pronounce him dead and move on. Well, when the daughter, who's played by this wonderful actress, very, very fiercely played, beautifully acted, she comes in and she wants to know, and she's talking to these doctors, she's questioning them, and she quickly learns that they don't know anything about medicine, and they're merely mouthing the words that they think people want them to say. There is no possibility of knowing the truth in this case because no one knows the truth. What do you do in a situation like that? Well, what follows very rapidly after that is the scheming, the betrayal, the behind-the-back plots, etc., summary executions. The whole series of events follow after that. And it's merely a reflection on what we've already seen from the very first scene, which is this is a society that has become totally untethered from reality. Truth plays no role in this society. How did it happen? How did this remarkable culture, the beloved culture of Russia, which has such rich heritage in art and literature and a very beautiful and deep-founded Christian tradition there, how did it get from that to the place now where everything is up for grabs? It gives us an insight into this sober word that the Lord says to the disciples today. The world cannot accept the Spirit of truth. The world cannot accept the Spirit of truth. Why? Because once the world got its first taste of this phenomenon, that merely by making an assertion, merely by willing something into being, it's as if I can make it so. Once it got its taste for that I can make a world of my own creation And people will follow it and accept it, maybe because they have no choice. Once we have gotten a taste for that, it's very hard to go back to the truth. And the problem is that once you do that, all you have now is worthless opinion. All you have is fireworks. You have illusion. You do not have anything real. It's a very great temptation. And do we imagine that we ourselves are exempt from this? I don't think you can find many people in our country now who would suggest that we are exempt. The trouble is that we're now caught up in precisely the same dynamic. Not nearly so dramatic, not nearly so extreme as in communist Russia, heaven knows, okay? No one would make that claim. But do not think that we're exempt from it. It is devastating to see how much we ourselves allow this very intriguing and tempting logic of assertion, of merely willing something to be the thing that now drives the way that we understand the world. The difference in our case is this. In Russia, it was very easy to point the finger. You can point directly to Stalin and to the small group of people at the very top around him who foisted this new dynamic on an entire people and enforced it very strictly with all of the forces of violence that you can muster in the modern industrial age. Okay, in an authoritarian regime, you can point the finger to one or a few figures. We don't live in an authoritarian regime, we live in a democracy. And in a democracy, the finger points back to you and to me. This kind of logic can only take hold if we ourselves allow it to take hold, if we ourselves assent to this completely crazy illusion that we can make a world of our own creation merely by saying that it is so, merely by assenting to it, merely by asserting it. What do you think? Does it not resonate with you? Do you think I go a step too far by saying that we ourselves have gotten caught up in it and allowed it and accepted it? And that it's not just one or two figures here and there. It is a temptation for the entire nation, for our entire culture and society. I think I can prove it to you if you don't already spontaneously think of this on your own. Think for a moment about social media. Totally fine in its own right. It can be used very well. But it's become a kind of formation for us. It's become something that has now introduced a new culture in our own lives. We talk about our curated lives online. And here's the test for you. If you've ever used one of those dating apps, or any app for that matter, when you went to post your profile picture, did you just post the first selfie that you took exactly as it was? Or did you take like 35 selfies and then adjust the color balance and maybe crop it and work on the lighting and all that? On Facebook, have you always put up that which most accurately and objectively reflects the situation of your own life? Or have you posted only the things that show your life as you wish it would be? You know, the happy things, or even the sad things that strangely you want people to know about. We've received a certain kind of formation that is not in accord with the truth. It's in accord with this logic of self-assertion, of creating a world as we would like it to be. And it's deadly. It is deadly. We begin to see it because of the great difficulties we're facing in the world of politics. We see how our public conversations have become so vitriolic and vicious, so lacking in charity. It's so impossible for us to trust each other anymore or to believe each other. And the formation's coming down from that level down to the very level of our neighborhoods where we don't even trust each other much anymore. This period of pandemic, the period of quarantine, has been a great gift to us in certain respects because we've seen the goodness of people again. It's like a chance for a reset button. We got out of the world of illusion briefly, mind you, and we actually went walking in our neighborhoods again. Turns out I have birds in my neighborhood. I have neighbors in my neighborhood. And they're very friendly people. They wave. You see them out frequently taking their evening walk as I do. What is our formation? And here I want to speak to us Christians for a moment. What is our formation now? What have we allowed it to become? Is it a politicized, a hyper-politicized formation? How much are we watching? How much are we reading? How much of this commentariat do we allow to form us? This channel and that channel, this paper, that paper, this tweet and that tweet. Is that our formation? For some of us, it is. The temptation is there. Maybe you're not a political person. Is your formation given to you by the entertainment industry? Very powerful. What do I watch? What do I spend time contemplating? What is forming me? Is it the world that proposes that I can create anything of my own design and enter into that just merely by assertion? The period of quarantine is our reset button. Thanks be to God for that. And it's precisely now as we move toward Pentecost, a great gift of the good Lord. I want to leave you with this because I want to propose once again that Christians take up the great challenge to withdraw a little bit our feelers from the world and to reattend to interiority, to the place where God is giving us this gift. Listen again to what he says. On that day, you will realize that I am in the Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. In. The mystery of interiority is the mystery that God is giving to us. He is going to send his own life into us, and from that place, he is going to lead us back out into the wide world. We can range as freely as the Spirit and our spirit wishes, but we do so from that place that has been cultivated within us, where God places his Spirit, the Spirit of truth, which allows us to see the world as it really is, which is far more interesting, far more encouraging, far healthier and more balanced, far more inviting than these crazy worlds that we love to concoct for ourselves. The world's totally unmoored and untethered from reality. That's the invitation now. And I want to leave you with just one thing that I hope will help you to take up that challenge again. It's a quote from a figure that I taught this semester in my course at SLU, Blessed Franz Jägerstätter, a simple man from a remote village up in the Alps of Austria. When Nazism grew ever greater to the point where it overtook Austria, it reached all the way up to his little village and eventually conscripted all the young men in that village because it would accept no one to be outside of its control. And this one little man in this village said, I will not do that. I am a Christian. If I'm going to give my life, I will give it for Jesus Christ, but I will not give it for Hitler. I will not give it for any ideology. I will not give it for any plan that does not correspond to the Spirit of truth. He had the most beautiful experience. They locked him up. They eventually put him to death. They locked him up. They moved him to a prison in Berlin, and in one of his final letters, he wrote this most touching letter to his wife. I warmly recommend the whole book of his letters to you. I'll put a post to it on the link on the page. He says, here in prison, I can make the most beautiful retreat. If I were at home, I would give myself hardly a week for this time, which means that I would keep putting it off. But here in prison, I can make a beautiful retreat, cultivating that beautiful interiority, opening up the space so that God is the one who forms me and nothing else. In this strange time, let's take up that invitation again. Let's let it be a renewed possibility of interiority so that you and me, Christians, let our formation be the Spirit of truth and nothing else. Amen.